So this is going to be a breakdown of my song Future Someone. I did a breakdown of the drums, which I will link in the description. So this song started with two core elements. I have a piano, and a couple piano chords, and I have a clock. And I was sitting at my parents' piano, December 2020, probably around the holidays, and I sat down and was messing with some chords, complex, semi-complex chords, don't know the names of them. And because the clock is audible, like fairly audible, I was like, oh, cool, let me just write to this clock. So I came up with these chords. Pretty simple. They repeat. And the clock, it just has like such a cool texture to it. I wish I could say it's old, but it's not. It's just a modern clock with a good tick. I recorded the clock on my iPhone, and I ran upstairs, threw that into Pro Tools, threw the chords into Pro Tools, and I was like, cool, like let me see what I can do with this. I basically built the song around those chords. And as the song moves from verse to this reintro to the second verse, I threw in some really random cool sounds. And I'll start with the guitar in this. So I use the Strymon timeline a lot. I use the Big Sky. I don't think I own the H9 yet at that point. So this is basically me making a chord on the guitar, holding the button down on the Strymon, and letting it just infinite, hold. So I did a chord on the left side, I did a chord on the right side. Just a really long crescendo. And this happens underneath this little piano reintro solo thing that kind of felt like the right thing to do at the time. And this is another pad. I feel like I'd use the slide for this one. That's definitely the Big Sky. And then effects hit. What is this? I'm guessing that's like a white noise just through reverb. And then I got this UFO sound. That's definitely the Strymon timeline. Doing some weird stuff. And that weird guitar stuff is kind of going on behind this reintro that I move into. And in that particular section too, I decided to layer the piano with the Rhodes for more of like the bell tone, sparkly, pretty kind of depth that I was looking for. This section's pretty cool because instead of using traditional drum elements, I have a shaker doing like this cool little white noise thing. I have an oversaturated kick drum doing its thing. And then, in addition to that, I have some weird stuff going on. I have something I call dead air, and I want to say that I took this from one of the weird Strymon guitar parts that I did. So it has like this, I just think it sounds like dead air, whatever that means. And between those elements, I feel like that was enough to move the second verse forward percussively, if that's a word, percussive wise. And then on top of this, I do these guitar plucks. One is dry with a little bit of slapback. The other one has slapback plus the Digitech on it for the extra high octave. Pans right. So I recorded that and I liked it so much. I was like, oh, let me copy and paste. And this is like one of those moments where I'm like, so glad I did it. In theory, this makes absolutely no sense. But when I copied and pasted it, one was on and one was off. So the one pan to the right is still on the grid. And let's see if I go to this. I copied and pasted this an eighth note late, which kind of cool. And I did that. I was like, that's kind of cool. But then when I had both of the plucks in, kind of got trippy. And I was like, happy accident. I'm leaving it. And it kind of makes sense in a weird call and response thing, but it's weird, but it's cool. What happened around, I feel like this is like the midpoint in the song. What happened around this part was struggling with where the arrangement was going, and it probably took me a little while because initially I had these chords and they sounded happy, they were cool, but nothing came of it. I wasn't inspired ultimately. And one day these particular chords just jumped out to me, and the chords sound like a question, which I think of music sometimes as thematically sometimes, which can cause a lot of, I don't know, just like push and pull with like what could be great thematically but doesn't ultimately serve the song. And moving from the second verse into like this next section, it felt like putting a question mark on it. And it just felt right. They repeat. I don't resolve the chords. They just keep ending on like this feeling of tension. And a couple synthesizers make an appearance. So the synth bass I use is the SH2, which will make an appearance for the part after this, which I call the break. It's like an instrumental. So I use an OB pad to fill this out. Let's see. So I have those two guitar pads, with my foot on the timeline or the big sky. I have these plucks. And something cool that I thought of in the stereo field rather than think of it as far as just sound wise was this bass that and in one moment it's panned on the left, in another moment it's panned on the right, and they just move in and then they move out. And that sounds like this. So I have that, I have the pad. And the drums start to wind up in this part as well. And that's the second UFO sound, if I was to call it anything else but that. Would be weird because that's what I put on Pro Tools. So yeah, there's UFO 2. That's one part. And then what's cool with this too is this is actually the piano. And I sent that to the Strymon timeline, and I'm sure it took a couple takes to wind it up, get the timing right, and then pull it back. But that underneath the actual piano layer I thought was like a really cool addition, because they don't compete with one another, but yet you still get the texture of like the ramping up of like this weird little sound. Now here comes the special part, the strings. My mixer / mentor received my demo minus the strings, and his first thought was like, hey, would you be open to this? And I was like, cool. I'm like, if you got a guy, it's cool with me. It was within my budget, which was awesome, and I gave no instruction whatsoever. So Mike, my mixer, being the cool guy that he is, gave Josh, the violin player, some instruction with, play like this pizzicato, play this thingamajig, and that whatchamacallit. And Josh also used some low octave effects, probably like the Digitech. So there's some weird stuff going on in here that Mike was able to assemble in his mix to build out like a cool arrangement, so that this break that we're about to listen to had enough stuff melodically going on, and then when my vocals came in for the outro, it sat underneath the vocal and filled it out. And then as the song finished, the certain themes came back, and I thought Mike did a brilliant job at this. Hearing it this way, I'm like, I don't even know if like it could be topped. I was so pleasantly surprised. So, and then that little guitar comes in the chorus, but that's not the string section. This is the string section. And this is where it kind of lows a little bit. It just ducks down. And then this is where the outro, so to speak, begins. So beautiful. Fantastic. And if you go back and listen to that, there's a low violin part in the pans hard right stereo field that really fills it out. Because then now I'll go back to the guitar that I accidentally played before. This guitar was recommended by Mike because he's like, you need something to fill out the bottom a little bit more, because we just had the SH2. I put some bass in there that was really like gnarly and heavy. Ultimately that was cut because it was just too much, especially with the strings. Like, there's a lot of motion going on. So I did this guitar, and it has like a fake little whammy on it because I didn't have a whammy at the time. Like an envelope filter of sorts. And that, I never recorded it, and it sounds like so puny and simple. I think Mike distorted the shit out of it, copied it, and then panned it hard right and hard left to make the end of the song that much heavier. It just sounds cute right now. And then we got this little UFO sound coming up. And that's right before the vocals kick in. So yeah, there's a lot of weird little elements where I'm like, man, sometimes experimenting pays off, even if it takes a really, really long time. And paired in with Josh's plucks on the violin, I have these little plucks, a lo-fi pluck 1 and lo-fi pluck 2. Just as like something weird. It sounds like a video game, but I'm like, you know what? It sounds lo-fi and weird. Maybe Trent Reznor would like it. Throw it in there. So that's kind of hidden in there. These pads, like I said, from the Strymon, make an appearance in the end of the song. So it's like you have that, you have these guys, and then the strings come in. There's a sweep. And it just continually sweeps up, and it always feels like it's rising. And that felt so right. Because it has a very bright, non-competing tone that works really well with Josh's strings. Even in this part. Whoop. Just all sorts of weird little things. And then one of my favorites, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around like crazy. So much stuff. One of my favorite parts, I used a Juno, it says Juno Magic Bell. That could have been the actual name of the preset. And that, I think, ultimately became a crescendo. So instead of that competing with all the information straight out of the gate for the last chorus and outro with the vocals and the strings and this and that crescendos, so that by the end of the song you hear become much more prominent. That decision was made later on in the mix process because it's cool. There's a lot of cool call and response stuff going on. So with the piano and that, the dead air is still going. So I'm gonna back up really quick. One cool little vocal thing I did, and I don't know why I thought of it. I don't know if you asked me to do it now, I really wouldn't know how to copy it again, because it was one of those spur of the moment, like, oh man, this is super cool. It happens in the second verse, and it's like this weird, like, 16th note delay thing. Let's see. And I thought, like, it just came to me, I did it, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I remind myself that we will never reach the end, cause we are always incomplete.
And it looks like it's just off an 8th note. It looks like. I could be wrong. That's an 8th note. It's off an 8th note. And I thought in the stereo field it'd be cool if it just kind of like ping pong from one side to the other.
Always incomplete.
And I put some flange on it, and I was like, damn, that's cool. And then it happens again over here.
I am meant to be.
I don't even know if I can ever copy that trick again because it's so special and it belongs in the song. As far as vocals, I did my best. I recorded some of these in a closet. I recorded in a bedroom. So tonally, it could have been better. I think I sang it the best that I could at the time. You know what? You do what you can do when you can do it, and that is that. I would like to think that I made a lot of mistakes doing this session, and my mentor / mixer, Mike, really elevated what I gave him. And I'm not even going to talk about the mistakes I made in this, but it's just, I gave him the best that I could, and he took it and was like, and then brought it up a whole nother level. So when I heard the polished product, I was like, you know what, this still sounds raw. It's great. It's kind of gritty. It's not too polished like a pop song, and it's a fun listen. And that, in a nutshell, in the most non-linear way possible, is me breaking down Future Someone. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.